Our second demo is Bluenose, which is a new product that's just, we're going to see some technology that I think we're some of the first people to see. Very cool. It's a customer success platform, so a new kind of category. And we got Don MacLennan and Todd Graham, the CEO and CTO of Bluenose, are going to be giving us a demo.
Things are having timed out or anything?
Just plug in right over here.
Much better.
Really thinking. It's thinking hard. I'm from Boston. They say it's thinking wicked hard.
We're in Boston, was it recent?
Most recently I lived in Newton.
Oh, yeah. I was in Newton Corner, right across the park.
Let's try this one more time before we give up in PowerPoint.
PowerPoint is the problem. No,
There we go.
All right, hi everybody, I'm Don MacLennan. I'm joined by Todd Graham. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Bluenose. Todd is co-founder and CTO. I'm going to give you 3 very quick slides to kind of frame what it is this application is designed to do. And most of the time the session is going to be spent showing you the demo of both our Force.com application living natively in Salesforce, as well as our more robust user interface, which is browser-based. So 3 quick slides. So who are we? We exist for businesses that have 2 things in common. The first of which is their financial health is dependent on recurring revenue, including but not limited to subscriptions. And the second is that their product experience is somehow connected to the cloud. In other words, it's measurable. And so we help businesses that have recurring revenue, that have a measurable consumption experience like cloud-based software, do a better job of keeping and growing their existing customers. Our belief is the world is full of great tools to optimize how you acquire a customer, not the least of which is Salesforce itself. But the relative availability of tools to help you hang on to existing customers and grow those relationships over time is very scarce, and so we're really trying to bring a solution to market that solves that specific need. People put a label to this at times, such as customer success. So if you have a sales-assisted model, you might actually have people in your customer organizations that use service as consultants, or if you're working in tech vendors, you may have a customer success team. In the case of lower touch models like B2C, this is really about retention marketing, if you've heard that label. Right? So both are really in the sights of what we're trying to automate. We were founded in November 2012, closed 2 rounds of venture financing, $2 million exactly 12 months ago, made our first technical hire last year in April, went into beta test in September, finished beta in December, closed an $8 million round in November of last year, so we're right at the moment of transitioning from beta into launching and selling the product, so you're seeing some very, very fresh code. Okay? And a couple of very prominent local Silicon Valley investors backing us. Norwest is investing out of a $1.2 billion fund at present, and Social Capital is investing out of a $550 million fund, so we're really happy about our investing partners. Okay? We exist to overcome the problem of data silos, particularly as it pertains to existing customers versus prospective customers. Right? Prospective customers can be described in a very small set of data. Right? Clickstream, so how and when did they come to your website? Email, how did you engage with them over email, such as automated in Marketo, right? Salesforce.com, where someone's recording an interaction related to managing an opportunity, and that's about it. That's about all you know about that customer, and it lives in maybe 2 systems at most, right? Whereas once you have a customer, the variety of data explodes, and yet all that data is important to know. You have a financial relationship with them. If it's a subscriber, you need to know when that renews. You have consumption information, so how are they using this online service? What is the pattern of usage of this mobile device as supplied by Verizon, right? How do you use Basecamp online? Are you likely to renew because you've used it to such a great extent, right? Have you interacted with a support center or a contact center to help troubleshoot a problem that you may have as an end customer? Every single one of these data sets by itself is valuable to help understand the health of a customer relationship and where it's likely to go with respect to expansion or renewal or worse yet, churn. And so we exist to overcome the problem that all of this data is living in respective silos. So our job is fuse it together, make sense of it, and then connect it back to customer engagement processes. Next slide. All right, so how it works is we aggregate data from many, many different sources, including Salesforce itself, from deep usage data, clickstream data, event level data, from purchase history, from sentiment-related data sets such as tweets or things people say in emails, from support tickets, right? Effectively any customer-facing data set that you may have available to you, you smash it all together into a unified data model, so everything is collated around that user and or the company that they work for, right? And then we make sense of it through a variety of methods. You'll see evidence of the demo from straight up descriptive analytics that take advantage of the fact this is all in one place, to predictive analytics where we start to project certain outcomes like churn, to even descriptive analytics, which is, hey, what should you do when you encounter data of this type? Okay? And so what we spit out is alerts for salespeople, dashboards for managers to decode what drives churn, and perhaps even automated engagement where we connect that user back into a campaign that may live in Marketo. Any questions? Okay. You have a question?
The predictive engine that you have, is it only for sales data and helping kind of companies drive their customer sales, or you could use it in another industry, like this predictive engine? Like I come from the healthcare industry. Can you help me take this engine and use it for, say, a patient and a doctor, the treatment, etc.?
Nope. We're using kind of a state-of-the-art big data stack and math under the hood to serve data up to people whose responsibility is each and every day to manage customer relationships, either programmatically through marketing automation or because they're a salesperson or account manager. So this is all about a vendor, right, doing a better job of hanging on to and growing its existing customers. So everything we do with respect to predictive analytics under the hood is for a very specific use case. Packaged in an application, and you'll see the application in a moment in terms of who it's built for. So it's not a general purpose big data platform. It's not for predicting survival rates in cancer clinical trials and any such thing. It's got a very specific metaphor, which is customer relationship management, and even more specifically, once I've acquired a customer, what do I do to hang on to them and grow that over time? Okay?
A question.
Sure.
You mentioned feeding back into Marketo.
Yep.
And from what I know of Marketo, I mean, it goes lead management, and it's basically funneling through to how valuable is the person.
Yep.
When you push people back into Marketo, what does that look like? I mean, it's they're re-entering the potential being a lead phase, or
Sure. So if you think about tools like Marketo, right, they're relatively ignorant of a lot of the data sets that are descriptive of an existing customer relationship, like how are they using my service? And so Marketo is a fine platform, right, in which to form a campaign, have content, push that content to somebody to drive them to some outcome. The problem is Marketo has no knowledge of when an existing customer, right, might need to be nurtured, for example, to learn how to use a feature that we know to be very sticky or retentive, because it doesn't know what usage data is in its underlying data model. So our role in coupling ourselves back to Marketo or any other channel of customer engagement is to make that channel smarter, right? So email doesn't have context, but we might give email the context. Marketing automation doesn't have context, we might give it. You could even imagine looping our insights back into a contact center where an inbound ticket arrives, but it's from a very important customer who's at risk to churn. Maybe we change the queuing method in terms of how quickly we route that ticket because we now know what's at stake, right? Whereas it otherwise would sit in the queue and it's got a FIFO type of metaphor. Make sense?
Yep.
So we don't want to reinvent email or marketing automation or even in-app messaging such as an Intercom IO. We want to make those channels smarter. Or Salesforce itself, which you're about to see. Other questions? All right, let's get to the good stuff.
All right, awesome. So, as Don mentioned, we've got a product here that focuses on gathering data from lots of different data sources, whether it be trouble tickets, opportunity records, interactions that you've had with your customer base, and ultimately fuse that with usage data. We think usage data is one of the most important pieces of missing information that we can now capture out there. And as we brought that into our platform, we're actually able to build a bunch of predictive algorithms that we mentioned that can predict whether or not a customer is going to churn. So we do consume things like Net Promoter Score and customer satisfaction surveys and whatnot. What we've seen, though, is those aren't necessarily predictive as to whether or not someone's going to leave you. If you believe in behavioral economics as an area of research and study, the most predictive thing you can find is what someone actually does versus what they say they're going to do, or what they told someone they say they would do. And so when Don and I started this, we realized, sort of usage is the missing link out there. If we bring that together, we can begin to give insight not only to customer success, but to the sales organization as a whole. So in a moment, I will show you what our web interface looks like. We really serve two different personas out there as our primary users of the platform. This new role called Customer Success has an individual contributor who manages these accounts day to day, trying to make sure that accounts renew, make sure that the customer base is happy. They're not doing break-fix support, but they're basically your concierge to make sure that the account renews. They typically have a manager, VP, who's trying to make sure that their team is moving efficiently across the land and covering accounts. In many enterprise software as a service companies, the ratios are 60 accounts to every CSM or 300 accounts to every CSM. So it's not exactly something that is open to, I'll go manage one account a day. You're kind of fighting fire. Customer success as a function tends to live either inside of Salesforce or they're looking for a tool, in which case they're living inside of Microsoft Excel. And so we've built dual interfaces that all bring data together into the same platform, do all the processing in the cloud, and then deliver the results into two different user experiences. So I've got a standard Salesforce instance here, done nothing too exciting to it, except I've installed our module. So immediately, if I look at AGCO here, I see a health score indicator. So this is our predictive algorithm that says this account, based upon a variety of inputs, something as simple as velocity, frequency of usage, regressed against likelihood of other accounts that have churned, or something like the executive sponsor has left, they've got too many trouble tickets, things of that nature, can be all put together either in a black box or in a white box algorithm to generate that particular outcome. So we use a stoplight metaphor. Accounts are either red, yellow, or green. In this case, I've picked one that's in the middle, which is yellow. So I've got a standard record here, but you can see that we've appended in our own view of the data set. So this is Bluenose computed information, and what you can see here is revenue information, the current health index, but if I move over to this area here, I will see how they've been trending. So one of the things that we focus on at Bluenose is time series. We believe we can unlock a lot of value by constantly recording data and fields, and when we log into Salesforce via OAuth on a regular basis and pull data in, our back-end data store is actually a time series data store. So you may lose in Salesforce how long an account was in a particular stage. We don't. We can play that back to you. We can rank things like usage, so how's this account doing relative to other accounts, how long have they actually been an account. And over here, I actually have, my data is a little more fresh than Tableau, but not as fresh as I wish it were. We've got no more usage events in this particular account for the last couple weeks. But I can literally see how many events has this account been generating from a usage perspective. The things that make up the health score, the red, yellow, green, can be either a very basic algorithm that is hands-off by you, or you can set up lots of different sections that score things differently. So I can literally send out a survey to people and say, hey, have you talked to the executive sponsor recently for this account? Are there more than 5 open Sev1 tickets for this account? And begin to track at a very granular level the change in time, how an account's health is changing. Not only do we compute data or results at a red, yellow, green level based on aggregation of data, we can trigger alerts and notifications and recommendations for individual events that occur. So in this case, I've got 2 health alerts here. One shows me that the customer satisfaction has actually dropped, with the recommendation to call the admin to find out why. And also this account's invoice is 30 days past due. So maybe they're not going to be renewing. You should give them a call and find out. we've got a myriad of different alerts that can occur there. We have a workflow in the product, a number of workflows that drive best practices. This case is escalation. So if I discover an account that is in the red or in the yellow, I may in fact want to bring up the flagpole, alert leadership, alert management, and scream on top that I need help to save this account from trouble. And then additional data on usage. Because we're tracking very granular usage data, we can figure out how many end users you have, how frequently are they engaging with your product, and how many licenses you have for those end users. So we spend, a lot of our customers have spotted overages, because a lot of SaaS companies allow you to over-provision and then forget to bill you for it. So we're helping with that problem. Not only do we have a view, though, into the data here, we realized we actually wanted to extend the Salesforce data model and allow you to make these part of your normal reports. So you can imagine, I really want to see all my accounts by health and things of that nature. So our module includes a pretty good set of out-of-the-box dashboards and a pretty good set of out-of-the-box reports that are built all inside Salesforce around the addition of the health score concept here, as well as who owns the account. A lot of organizations, I think, struggle to extend Salesforce correctly to drive customer success, and this lets them go ahead and do that a little bit better. So I can literally take a report in here, go build a new report, and make an account-based report. It's all well and good. Accounts, and by simply adding a handful of objects that are synchronized in here, I can add natively into Salesforce health indicators, what the stage is the account currently at, who the customer success person is, things of that nature. How many licenses has the account used? So all the data that we're driving in our product is pushed back into here so I can natively use this inside of Salesforce. So folks who are living in Salesforce day to day don't need to leave Salesforce. They can let the big data analytics flow out of us, and life is good. Any questions there before I jump out of Salesforce for a minute? All right. I guess the advantage of having alcohol before is I'm not the guy holding up the alcohol, which is quite often the position that I'm in. Let me show you for a second. Let me go back and let's remind ourselves of AGCO here. This is the view that we've got, as I mentioned, inside of Salesforce. Let's look at that exact same account inside of Bluenose. Web application view here, very similar set, basically should be all the same data you saw in the application itself inside of Salesforce. You'll see within an account we have the ability to create a task, log an event, log an interaction. All that synchronizes back and forth with Salesforce. So for a certain percentage of our users who don't want to use Salesforce day in and day out as their tool, this can be the way they do that, but we don't want to fight the battle of being a new system of record. We can synchronize back into Salesforce as needed. So you see a little bit expansion of what you can see relative to the account from within this view, especially around usage data. So you saw a summarization of usage before. We can literally give you a view of usage by the event type, grouped either at the month, the day, the hour, or the individual events. So if I want to go look and see what Todd did inside the platform today by hour, I can actually manage that. This is our sample data. We've had folks very quickly discover by looking at charts like this, what is the life cycle of an account, right? So what does a good account look like? And if I've got an account that's not doing the normal number of events that I expect them to, how do I want to jump into that? I was excited, though, to see a tree map in the prior presentation. We have a tree map in our product as well that allows us to explore the relative number of events that happen within an account across within an end user and across the account base as well. So this is the shared view that we work with Salesforce, and we think that people are going to may live between both of these, but most folks day to day are going to live inside of Salesforce. I mentioned sort of two personas, one being the individual, the second being more of the executive. And the VPs of customer success that we work with, they want to explore a lot of dimensions of their data, and they want to understand, all right, how is my team being utilized? And more importantly, what are some systemic drivers that are causing my team to be overutilized? the fight to get customer success resources is just like the fight to get customer support resources. You know, there's a when the levee breaks, you add another resource, and you wait for the levee to break again, and you add another, get budget for another resource. So one of the things that we've invested in our platform here, dashboards and a lot of reports that allow us to very quickly get a handle on what accounts are escalated, who's in a red account, who's not doing well, who's got a renewal coming up in the coming days and weeks ahead. One of the things, though, that we can do when we go and take a look at some of these events systemically is actually be able to build lots of filters and reports and charts around this data. So I'm actually going to go in real time, parse through a couple 100 million events here. I'm going to show you usage sequentially compared year over year in this case. So we can see that this company is actually on a downward trend in terms of overall usage. But I may ask the question, you know, how does that impact accounts that are in the yellow versus in the red versus overall? So this will take a second to run as we parse through all this data again on this somewhat slow Wi-Fi connection. What you're going to see here is a change relative to the accounts that are in the red versus the yellow versus the green. And I can then assess whether or not, do I have a systemic issue where usage is dropping in a particular area? And then I can actually begin to parse that out on region, channel, tier, industry, things of that nature. So I can begin to decode a lot of the differences that are driving numbers. We see a lot of organizations trying to grapple with churn. They don't actually know how to decode the underlying value. And as I was scrolling down, this was previously 470K at the top, now we're down to 15. So actually, in your yellow accounts, you're not seeing a huge drop-off year over year as you were in the overall. So a lot of what we're trying to drive here is give tools to customer success leaders to manage that. Another view that we can subscribe, for example, is churn rate. I may want to look at the churn rate and understand, for example, does it differ based upon the tier of the account or potentially the health of the account over time. So are we computing there in live time the churn rate of the account? So lots of tools to help folks in customer success at a leadership level understand what's driving their numbers and are there things hiding out in their overall smooth numbers that they're reporting up to the board that they should be looking into. I think that was most of what I wanted to show quickly to everyone here. Questions, comments?
Can you talk more about your predictive analytics?
Sure. It's built around the notion, well, there's sort of two things that we worry about, right? One is change in velocity of usage, typically, is what we're focused on, for usage data being sort of the king of all of this. So we will look at how frequently an account and an end user ultimately is engaging with your product. We'll do a fair amount of regression to figure out what are actually the important events. So let me give you a great example. One of our beta customers, about a year and a half ago, about 18 months ago, released a mobile app. And think about how you interact with a website versus a mobile app, especially if it's a service that you're paying for. You go to a website and you enter in credentials. So a login is actually a very meaningful event, right? But 18 months ago, they released this mobile app, and you don't log into it. Once in a while, you log into it. So immediately, logins became not at all helpful. So what we were able to discern was we should ignore logins at the 18 months ago and begin to focus on other predictive things in addition to logins as we've done previously. So we're looking for if we can look at known accounts that have churned, how did they behave versus other accounts that are currently in the life cycle and where they are in terms of their usage. So we're looking at which features appear to be retentive, which features, what velocity, how frequently is someone engaging those features, and is an account engaging more or less with those particular features. So to the question around Marketo earlier, we can build you a report that says, hey, here are all the accounts that aren't actually using, still thinks I'm plugged in. Here are all the accounts that aren't using the features that we think are important. So you may want to go ahead and send them a nice message saying, hey, here's how to use these features. Right? If you don't know how to, if you didn't know they existed, here's a little tutorial on that. And we're seeing some organizations get wise to that and slowly build their capabilities. Is it me or is it you? Or is it? That crashed the entire system.
It's the whole projector system.
Yeah. they're all.
We need Wi-Fi projectors.
On that note,
No?
Yeah, I agree.
Guess your demo's over.
I guess that's okay. Good timing. Any other questions?
Just a minor one. I heard you mention something about like Twitter stream. You know, if there's a problem that comes out, you might be able to detect. And I forget what it was, but I think there's an API call where for free you get 80% certainty. For money you get 95% certainty of whether it's a positive or negative tone around a tweet. So you can get like my company and then it's negative, my
Mhm.
company.
A couple
Is
services that
is
do that.
something-
We've got sentiment built into our model
Sentiment,
as
yeah.
well.
Okay.
We think that's kind of more important in the larger B2C plays than it is the B2B plays
Okay.
at this point. But sentiment's definitely an input that you can derive into our system.
Gotcha. But I guess my question sort of was,
Sure.
you had mentioned it can, aggregate data is fine, but then there are individual events that when they happen,
Yeah.
and I was wondering if that was one of them, or what are some of the other individual events that would trigger something and then, notify someone there's an issue?
So if someone usage has dropped 30% over the last 7 days, we've got a Boolean engine that you can configure literally what events in our data stream trigger an alert. So it may be something like a new Sev1 trouble ticket has been opened for greater than 48 hours. It may be that someone in a conversation with the customer said, I'm threatening to churn. Great, we've got that in the feed. Let's fire that.
Important customer. Or,
Yeah.
right, okay.
Yeah, and if you can set that up by ARR of the account, right? So we've got
Is there an API that's available for this for developers or?
no, not at this time. We do offer an API back to our customers who want to feed our data back into their own warehouses, if that's of interest to them. We've got a couple of folks who do that. But I have the ability within here to build a health alert on show me accounts that are red, whose stage is trial, potentially whose renewal date is less than 30 days from now, and whose tickets exceed a certain amount, sort of thing.
Yeah.
What's the price point for this? How do you structure the pricing?
So at this point, it's a monthly fee service based upon the size of the revenue amount that we're managing. Is probably the best way to think about it.
So it's based on amount of data that's going through the pipeline?
No. So we actually want you to send as much data as you have through the pipeline. Think about it as the amount of revenue that we're managing. So if you're a $5 million or a $10 million company, we're gonna price it differently than if you're SAP or IBM. Cool. Anything else?
How do you figure out that this executive sponsor left?
So you don't necessarily. One of the issues that we saw early on by focusing solely on a model that was data-driven was that you lost resolution. So we have a survey engine that can go out and actually ask the folks interacting with the account on a weekly basis or a monthly basis to answer a set of questions that then go help drive the health score. So for example, I can say when I build my health score that 70% of an account's health is derived from its product usage algorithm output, right? But I can then also say that there's these 5 other questions that I want answered that will account for the remaining 30% that can be all individually weighted. So I may have an account that is using the product like gangbusters, but someone heard that they're about to be acquired. So now I want to put them into the red so we can manage that as potential M&A-based churn.
And you get that through a survey?
In the product today, yeah, through a survey. Or through the data model if it's sitting in our data model.
And that goes back to Bluenose or that goes back to Salesforce?
It's available, it goes through our platform, which is then fed back into Salesforce.
That 69% of the surveyees said being acquired is
No, it's really about getting the tribal knowledge inside the vendor into this application. So if a salesperson knows an executive sponsor has left, they can be the source of the answer that drives the score about that customer's health. Because they have knowledge that's not sourced in any system.
Okay, so you're asking a literal question, is the executive sponsor still in place, yes or no?
Correct. Yep, of the account rep.
It's that literal?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
If you want, if you choose
to make that significant in the health score, then sales rep gets the
When you
survey.
say you, do you mean the client or
Yeah.
you guys being the experts?
So what we've observed is people don't want to trust a black box algorithm. They want to
Okay.
have some control over the significance that our algorithms play in overall health versus things they believe to be true. In which case, if they think executive sponsor, based on their experience, is important, we give them the ability to weight how important that is relative to our statistical based algorithm.
So you're in a conference room, the client says, that's an 80% deal killer if the executive sponsor leaves.
Yep,
If the VP gets swapped out,
exactly.
if my gal pal leaves, whatever the phrase is,
Yep.
and you put that right into your model to say, this is what the client said,
Correct.
is the weight of this item, and we're gonna track it based on the survey results of whoever we survey.
Yep.
Wow, that's excellent.
And is that in your configuration dashboard in terms of weighting units?
Yes. So I literally can specify lots of different sections that I want to drive to. So I can use either including the algorithm input, but I can also have an adoption section, implementation, product fit, and within each of these sections, I can go ahead and build out a set of questions. Is the executive sponsor left? And what is the relative weighting of all of those things? So yes, the notion here is that I can get very granular in the questions that I ask, and I can either answer them that, and then weight that question correctly. So I want to weight that, that becomes that question, how that comes in. This is presented as a survey to folks.
And for NPS scores, did you, does the report card app for Salesforce map pretty seamlessly? What did you use for the NPS?
So we take NPS as an input to the product. We ingest it from either CSV, SurveyMonkey, Salesforce, wherever it's coming in. And that actually lives in our data model. I'll go look at one right here. Survey trend, up from 5 to 6, with the current average recently being 5. So those live inside of our data model, if you so choose, and we'll drive those as part of the question. Make sense?
Yeah, so I guess reeling all the way back to the beginning, is there a particular strategy for the data aggregation in terms of the multiple systems? I mean, I wish I had one for matching accounts across all my data systems.
Yeah. We've got automated adapters that go into these data sources with a set of matching algorithms and try to bring it all together using machine learning with a bucket that we dump into if we can't figure it out. You have to build a link, frankly. We are seeing as people, especially in B2B or B2C where there's billers and things like that, if someone like a Zuora or an Aria has gone ahead, people seem to have sorted out a little bit better the interconnectivity, or at least they realize they need a foreign key populating a couple different spots, but in a lot of accounts we go into, that is not the case.
Yeah, you're ahead of the game if you're using that. But that's a much better answer than, that's your problem. You put in that unique ID.
When we started the company, we set forth with a list of all the dirty data, nasty data problems that we figured we could try to solve versus those we absolutely would not solve. We realized that if we didn't give it a solid try to do a lot of data matching, we wouldn't actually get anywhere. So you had to solve. There's a Mendoza line you need to cross before you can even play the game.
You mentioned about the ALM, so what's the query time or pretty much the potential time for the ALM, the machine learning component?
Once we do the initial, depends what data you give us, right? Once you do the initial learning, the algorithm runs every night and reprocesses net new data. So we're doing diffs on the data set, but we're chunking through a very, very large data set right now, and it's taken us a couple of days total to process all that. But that's probably one of the largest data sets that's around. Awesome.
Does that include the pre-allocation time for the Booleans? So if you're having the diffs and the Booleans, that includes the setup and...
It includes the entire mapping process and data ingestion process. Cool. Thank you, everyone.
Very cool. Any last business cards before we do a drawing?
Yeah, put yours twice.
Thanks, guys. That's very cool.
They were both
Alright.
good, huh?
Yeah. There you go. Oh,
He has one, he has one. Get someone outside of the company to pick.
well, she already left, so.
No, outside of the company, somebody else like him.
Joseph Stern. All right. You want a sweatshirt? So thanks everyone for coming. We're doing this again April 2nd.
Yeah.